Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel where we review anything and everything. And in this video, we're not reviewing an official Lego set, but if you go back to a previous video where I was doing the build for the Obi-Wan's hut, my first build video for Lego, I was actually just talking and rambling a bit and went into the discussion about how I like the idea of spaceships, Lego spaceships and Star Wars ships, or just spaceships in general, but obviously Lego Star Wars ships are the predominant ships that are for the Lego system since they stopped making their own space lines that they used to make before. But I mentioned in the video about how the only and first Star Wars Lego set that I ever bought was the Imperial Armoured Marauder set, Lego set 75311, which at the time was going for about $39, give or take. I think I was able to catch it on sale for $29 at the time, but now it's actually going on Amazon. I'm going to throw a link in the description for $58. So I think the set is no longer being made, and it was discontinued. So now the price is going to go up. Now, this set, you can look it up. It looks totally different than what you see in front of you. But as I mentioned in that past video, so I'll reiterate, is that I bought the set because, I like the interior design of it. I'm a big fan of interior designs and having space in vehicles and spaceships in terms of having interior space. Because I just think it's very appealing to be able to set it up and build it the way you want with, like, say chairs and bed space, or like all that kind of stuff that you see, say, in a typical space movie, or even take Star Wars, where you see people running around their ship. I like to call it the personal hero's ship, because, or the hero's personal ship, but because it's almost like it takes on a life of their own. It's like the hero's home base. It's his ship. It's his everything, his sleeping quarters, his everything. And a lot of times, a lot of movies, well, specifically Star Wars, other movies do this too, space movies, but what they do is they bring that ship to life by having that person do so much in their ship. Like the ship is a part of, it's like a living entity almost on its own, where they're inside and they're running around, and they're running around to one portion of the ship saying, I gotta fix the hyper bay, the hyperspace engine, or I gotta run here and this is giving me problems, and they're running around doing that, or they're navigating the controls or whatever it is, but they just make that space just a living part of the movie because it's used so much. And a case in point in that is the Millennium Falcon. Obviously, it was one of the first to do that. But then you also had, which this line comes from, which is the line of the Mandalorian. You had that with the Mandalorian ship, the Razor Crest. And then you also had that, I never seen the show Star Wars Rebels, the anime, but you also see that now in the Ahsoka live action show, where they have the Ghost ship, which is another ship that they don't show too much of on the show at the moment, but there's a Lego set for that, and I actually purchased that set already, which I have on me as the moment that we're speaking now, as I'm doing this video now. But in the Ahsoka's, her personal ship, they actually didn't make it very interior friendly, so that wasn't a ship I was interested in. But my point is, like, getting back to it, I just kind of really like that. So this, in its basic regular form, has a lot of space in it already, from its original play setup and layout. You can go check that out in terms of either other videos, or go to Google any pictures of the tank form of it, we'll call it for short. The Armor Marauder was a tank for the tank form of it, and it had some decent space in it, where I want to say it was roughly about 4 squares, 4 studs across, which is decent building space when you have the kind of interior walls that kind of are not flat like this, but they kind of arch inwards. And so it gives you, where someone's standing, their arms can kind of squeeze in those areas, allowing them to sit next to the wall. If you understand what I'm saying, for anyone who's into Legos, they'll understand what I'm saying. And then as far as the length goes, depending on if you gutted it out a little bit from the seats that were in it, you could have a decent amount of space, because this is the same length as the tank form structure. So you have a lot of interior space. But what I did here, turning this same build into a ship, and I'm going to first start with a story element that I came up with before I start dissecting my first ship build that I did here in front of you, that I chose to use this as a base model for. And I'm no expert. As I mentioned in that video, you should go check out the video of me building Obi-Wan's hut, the build process, where I ramble a little bit and I mention about I'm not a master builder, but I would love to get to the point of being able to build ships. And this was my first attempt at doing that. Now, and I purchased this maybe about a year ago. Now, with that being said, the story aspect that I came up with this, because I had fun just kind of coming up with that, is obviously anyone's familiar with this set. It comes with Grief Karga from the Mandalorian show, and it comes with 3 stormtroopers. So I said to myself that Grief Karga, being that he rode in one of these inside the show before, decided to find one of these, salvage it, repurpose it to be his own little personal ship, so he can now explore and do all those kind of fun adventures that the Mandalorian was doing. But his crew that he has with him is a crew of just regular guys who decide to dress as stormtroopers. That way they can be incognito in regards to going places, and people think that they're part of the Empire. And so he'll be able to get away with things like smuggling and whatever other things he wants to do, and trade and various things. That was the story I just came up with behind it. I thought it made it fun to do that. Now, obviously, anyone who's familiar with the original build, I didn't really change much on it other than to expand it and make it really wide. I didn't have a lot of pieces that, extra pieces. I ordered some pieces off Lego, but I didn't have really a lot of pieces to do some specific things that, a person might be familiar with who is a good builder or even a master builder. So I don't have, you can see on the side here, I didn't have where you have those kind of flat pieces similar to like here, something like that, where you can put a roof on it and it comes off easy because it doesn't have as many studs. So I had to just improvise and just put, 2 on each side, individual studs, so that way I can break that off. And I'm going to do that in a minute to show you guys. When I started the original build, I had it in the same tank form, and then I added wings on it, but eventually I wanted to expand it. But even when it was in that form, one of the first things I did was, if anyone's familiar, normally on the back, you have a rotating gunner seat, and this glass piece was back there. So the person would have the glass sitting upright, and it would be to their back, would be to where the glass is. And that part, the top of it, which is up here, would connect to the base of this, and it would rotate, and the seat would rotate with it. I took that off and just put this rotation piece with a circling piece on here, so that way this can just rotate independently on its own. So these are one of the main blasters to it. And what was nice about this in terms of turning it into a spaceship was that it has a lot of guns on it. So if you want to think of it like that, you've got these up here, you have these side cannons on both sides that rotate, and then you have the front blasters right here. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now this part comes down as the cargo area, and I'll just kind of show you from this area here that it just opens up as a nice little cargo area. And you kind of see some of the interior going on there already, which is kind of interesting because, like I said, I'm all about interior space, and I'm going to open up the top and show you that in a few. But I didn't end up putting a full wall there because it made things easier to work with. And with such a small ship, the cargo area is not necessarily separated from the other interior rooms, but it's it doesn't really need to be, obviously, unless you're transporting something that's toxic or something crazy like that. But for the most part, they would just kind of throw it in the back, similar to you would throw something in the back of, like, say, your SUV, and you could see over the seat what content you have there, but it still is your trunk. So, and then right here, you can see, and I'm going to open up the top, but you can see that would be the divider of the rooms. But I didn't make it go super high because for the most part, you kind of get the idea without it touching the top. So I like this back hinge for that purpose, this back door on the hinge for that purpose, which is always part of the build, natural build anyway. But it's pretty cool for storage. You can just bring it down and throw something inside the back cargo area. These were always the thrusters. Now I bought some pieces that I planned on making. Let's see here. For some of the pieces that I had purchased off of the website, and some of my extra pieces are from the build that I had to remove are in here as well. But you could see here, I planned on that was going to be a thermal detonator with inside here because we got a little bit of weapons that was going to be in there. I was planning on making some new, stronger engines that would be able to accommodate this ship. So I haven't done that yet. So technically, if we wanted to be realistic, this ship doesn't have the engine power to really be doing the space travel that it should. But that doesn't matter. If we're using our imaginations just to say, hey, it is what it is. But I do plan on doing that. And I'm somewhere. I just have to figure out where to put them. And I did feel that they would actually go well to put some engine, like replace these and make it part of this whole, just the structure right here, the big, just those engine circles here. But I didn't get a chance to get to that stage of it yet because I need to rearrange this whole thing a little bit. And I was contemplating connecting it to the wing, and I tried that before and it didn't work that well. So, and then here, I was going to put some blue thrusters, circles, small ones down here to show that it thrusts upwards, and then the big thruster circles on the back to show that it can go forward. So yes. But anyway, so obviously certain things I kept the same. This is the front cockpit area, and there you have Grief Karga there. He has his little red button control and his little joystick. Right now he's got his pistol in his hand, and obviously the same controls that you had on the base set originally for the tank formation. Now I spread everything out to about, I want to say it was something like about 10 studs wide, which then created 8 studs of interior space wide, which is double what the base amount was. I tried to do 10 spaces of interior space requiring 12 stud base, but that felt too wide and it didn't really look right. So we're going to adjust the camera angle here, and we are going to try to look inside. Now you got this little hatch here that opens up if you need to kind of get somebody in there like that. But I am going to, like I said, I'm going to open up the top. Let me just adjust things a little bit so I can get in a little bit closer. Okay, so this right here pops up. And like I said before, since I don't have those kind of specialized pieces that don't have as many studs, I had to just put this like that for that. Don't mind, you can see my tripod a little bit, but I just want to get you a full scape of it all, and then when I zoom in close I will do so. So let me see if I can get this part to lift up as well. Okay, so let me just make sure I remember how everything goes in place. So here you could see, and obviously these side doors open, so these side doors, just like the normal build goes, how the normal build would work, these would open up, and this is where people would get into it as far as for both sides if they want to get in. So that's there for the purpose of real-time play if someone was trying to get into it. But in terms of actual play, you'll open up the top, which is fine. And what you see here, so this is the area where you come in, but someone could stand in that area too if they need to. This right here is, so this is supposed to be kind of like a wall separating that room from this room. And although they're small, yes, but you can imagine, like, say some kind of not even if it's chaotic, but just a little group, the little group, just imagine you got the 3 stormtroopers here. I don't have them on right now, but so you got a crew of 4 people. You got your pilot, and then you have your other 3 crew members. Essentially, while someone's flying, you'll have someone can come into this room. Granted, there's no space here in between, but similar to like a cubicle or something like that, you know, someone would be able to go here, and this is the bed area that they can sleep right here. You can lay down, and then over here is kind of the little lounge area where you got the table and people could sit down, and they could face each other. And this is what I was saying before about how this is indented inwards. You can kind of see it. So it allows them to sit there without having their arms, you know, like not, you know, hitting the wall. So there you go. You pretty much just get an idea of everything. That's pretty much it right there. But like I said, you get to see all the interior space. And then this right here is a decent amount of space. It's 4 studs wide here in the center part, but then up here, it's 4 studs wide going to where the chair is. And that's why I left those side pieces like open like that. And this was the original piece that was here. So I didn't want to add anything more to it. But if you got to squeeze something in there, you can still, and it works. But for the most part, so it's not a lot of space, but then again, at least you have a cargo space. So you could imagine something similar to that kind of Han Solo type of, you know, character-ish where, you know, say Grief Karga in this case is, you know, flying around and he's got to make a delivery. He can throw a few things back here, whether it's crates, barrels, or whatever the case is. For example, I happen to have this crate on hand from the Obi-Wan hut set, and imagine if there was that there loaded up all along here with crates, and that would be his cargo. So he obviously doesn't have a ship to do large cargo, but at least he has a cargo area, and he has decent weaponry. He has these little cargo areas on the side for many things, even though these will probably be more so for like his personal type of stuff he would have on him, you know, to use, whether that's whatever it might be, because it's small amounts of cargo. Now, when this roof part is not on, this part structure holding it together is a little weak. It's all right. It's not going to, you can see I'm moving it here and nothing's really happening to it. It's fine. But that definitely is a point of where it's a weak point. So, you know, when you have it down, that's fine. But if you're moving it around and swishing it around, obviously you got to have your roof layout on there. So I'm going to close everything back up. And now that you've seen the interior, make sure this is down there pretty tight. So now that you see the interior, once I close it up and use just the opening points, you could see now how that looks, where you would have this little top opens up, but people could see out of it when they want to see out of it. And wait a minute, I think that I didn't put this in the right space. And this always gets tricky as far as putting these things all in the right space. So I actually moved this thing up a little too far upwards. And that's not where it was supposed to go. So let's see here. Okay, that goes like that. And then this, the way I had it, was actually supposed to be a little more moved in like that. Okay, I had it too over to the right a little bit, and the reason why that's important to be there is so this is sealed because I had a big gap inside there. You don't really want to have a gap. There's a small gap in between here, but you can't really see it that well. So this right here would be sealed, and when they're flying around in space, you could look up, you could see the stars here. When you land, you could have that open, and you could have this open as 2 different openings for, you know, for the roof area. And obviously the little side doors, go in the wide view, the little side doors here, and the back door here, and the front where the pilot can come out. So you have all these openings. that naturally came on it anyway. Not like this piece, but that's just so you kind of see inside and see your other guys inside there. So I know I stretched this out, but like I said, this was my first, this was my first spaceship build. Like I said, one day I would like to be a master builder in the realm of spaceships. And as I mentioned in my previous video of the build of the Obi-Wan's hut, that I break it down that there's multiple types of builders, master builders, as far as I'm concerned. And you can agree or disagree, but some might be good at making cars, what's the word I'm looking for? Of making their own build, for lack of a better word, their own unique builds of cars. Some might be able to be good at making buildings, and they learn that because they built so many of the city sets, and they're master builders at cities, but they may not be master builders at other things. And some might be master builders at spaceships. So for me, I'm a decent builder when it comes to mini architecture. I don't know if I'll say a master builder, but I'm pretty good at it. But I definitely want to become a master builder when it comes to ships, because my favorite part of ships is interiors. And one thing I'd always say is that with a Star Wars set, some ships can cater to having big interiors, like say the Millennium Falcon is just a big pancake in terms of its design. So you have all that room for interior space. Then you have other things like the Razor Crest, which is in between. It has a good amount of space for the regular build, not the UCS, but it has a decent amount of space while for interior, while still having a decent exterior build. Then you have other ships like, say, Ahsoka's new Jedi, I think it's called the T6 Jedi shuttle, and it's red and gray from the Ahsoka show. And in Lego form, it has no interior space, which you get the outside form factor looks amazing, but in terms of interior space, you can't mimic what you experience in the show in terms of her running around or doing things or whatever the case is, or training in her ship. You can't do nothing like that because there's no interior space. It's just a cockpit. So to me, I love the idea of ships that are built purposely with interior in mind. And I understand that for Lego, and in terms of scale size, they can't always do that, because if you take Ahsoka's ship, for example, at that point you literally have to make the ship huge just to be able to it'd probably be like this big just to be able to get a little bit of interior space, just because of the design of the ship. But with that being said, I love when you can have a ship that is designed for having space in mind and be able to have that whole interior where you can imagine your characters are running around, or they have an emergency and they're running around in the inside of the ship doing stuff. Maybe one's got to be working on the engines, or the other one's working on whatever other systems and computers going crazy, and they have interior room to run around and instead of just sitting in a cockpit and they can't move anywhere and whatnot. So because I feel like in a lot of space adventures, that's part of the adventure, part of what brings it to life. And obviously that's not just something I'm saying, because you've seen that in, say, Star Wars alone many times, where you see the guys like on the Millennium Falcon. This was done since the very first movie and done many times after that, where you're on the ship and you're running around the ship and you're doing all this crazy stuff while you're in the middle of maybe a dogfight, or something's going on, or you're coming in for landing and it's a rough landing. They even did it in The Mandalorian, where he's running around his ship, even when he had a whole crew of guys on his ship to go do some heist, if you remember the episode, and he's walking around his ship and he's talking with them and they're having conversations and whatever the case is. And it's like you just have that space. It's like it is like home. It's a home space. So it's that part always interests me, and so I like the idea of that. So here I created that, and I think it's okay. So post your comments down below. What you think, how you feel about it. If you think it's okay, if you think it's bad, what would you improve? Obviously maybe this gives you guys an idea to go and do the same and build it up if you guys want to your liking. Maybe you might say this is a great starter set to do that with. Unfortunately, now that the set is no longer on the market or being made, it's expensive now. Like I said, close to $60. So it's probably not the ideal set to use to be a starter set to build off of in terms of making a ship. Even though I thought in the past, it was the best. It was the best kit to start your own personal hero ship to build off of, because it gave you a lot of room, a lot of wiggle room as far as physical room, and a lot of wiggle room as far as like how to do your build, because it was pretty simple and whatnot and everything. So I thought that it was a great and perfect build for that. But unfortunately, like I said, at double the price that it was at one time, it's probably not the best one to go for now. You might be better off finding something else, unless you could find it cheap. But like I said, whatever thoughts that you guys have or inspiration that might help to give you, find means to make a ship however you want to make your ship. If you're in that zone like me where you wanted to make a personal hero ship that you can kind of build up. All right, you guys, I'll catch you guys in the next video.